This podcast is brought to you by Guiding Growing Minds, a social enterprise that aims to give all children the best opportunity to reach their potential and succeed in living rich and meaningful lives.
Episode 88 in the can, Dr. Billy Garvey. It's our third part on attachment technically. What are people going to learn this week?
Yeah, well, you'll notice there's tissues in the shot.
I lasted about 12 minutes and I was like, I need to go get the tissues.
I know, and then I needed them at the end. But yeah, some really wonderful questions that came in from listeners just sharing the stuff that they're struggling with, helpful tips, some useful feedback to try and make the podcast better, and then a beautiful story at the end from a dad just trying his best.
We're not trying to keep you on the hook till the last question. I mean, if anything, God, listen to that and how this person's evolved. It's tremendous, and it's kept me on the hook for another 250 episodes, meaning I've got 348 more to do on my current tally. Guys, enjoy the episode. We really love this one. We'll be back with a fresh topic next week, but enjoy.
Hi, I'm Billy, a developmental paediatrician.
And I'm Nick, a developing parent.
We're going to use scenes from iconic movies to talk about how we best support our kids.
This is Pop Culture Parenting.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.
Good morning, Dr. Billy Garvey. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a bit cosy looking at that jumper.
I know. I'm feeling, for those of you who are listening, it's hard to describe. Well, it's probably not that hard to describe. It's a handmade knit from my mother-in-law. Wasn't intended for me.
No.
It was intended for my father-in-law, but I have adopted it.
Yeah, it looks like it was tailored for you.
I know. I
beautiful.
did. I'll be honest. I told Billy, I saw a photo of Jerry Seinfeld this week in an airport in the 1990s, early 90s, and I said, God, that's a good outfit. I reckon I can pull it off. So I'm here, jeans, joggers, no belt, and a woolen knit.
And similar rise to stardom. In media.
Yes, humble beginnings.
Oh, yeah, I remember those early episodes. You certainly don't mean now, do you?
We've survived the pilot.
Yes, we have, yeah.
Because we're up to episode 88, Billy.
88, yeah.
88.
88, it's a lot.
And it's our third episode in this series of attachment.
Attachment, yes. Quite, yes, hit a nerve. So in mainly a good way, but... Yeah, we're going to talk about some feedback we got. I've whittled down phenomenal questions to, I think, 8 shorts and 8 longs, and then end on some beautiful feedback to just keep us going.
It is.
Yeah, so it's been amazing hearing what people have sent in about this. For the first time ever, there's been negative feedback in the past, but it's mainly been someone cranky about us saying that, physical discipline isn't good or something like that. So I've always been able to sleep at night with that stuff. But yeah, we've got some feedback from 2 mental health professionals. We're going to read one of them out in the feedback. Another one we can't read out because there's too much personal stuff about me, but it's important. It was really helpful to get that feedback because the positive feedback is awesome, but it doesn't change and grow the podcast. So it's been really helpful, but it was quite funny because I sent you the 2 emails and then was having a bit of a mare of a week and then couldn't get Evie to just stop focusing on the fact that Mummy wasn't home yet and eat her dinner or read a book or have a bath.
Yep.
And then I get a knock at the door and it's Uncle Nick with 2 beers. So... It's beautiful.
I think I knew what the situation needed.
Yeah, and that was exactly what it needed. We sat in these seats without the microphone on and thought about what's going on with the pod and what we're doing. And then I've been really lucky that I haven't spoken to you since then, but I've spoken to my clinical team about this and some people whose entire professional life is about attachment. Mm-hmm. And it's important that, we're really honoured that professionals listen to this, but this is really a discussion with 2 mates about, how the evidence can be helpful in guiding us. Yep. If you want to do professional development, I'm more than happy. I'm working with multiple clinical and non-clinical groups at the moment doing that, and that gives us an opportunity when you do challenge and say there's no evidence for that, I can discuss it. Because I actually started sending all the, the longitudinal studies to answer the criticism and stuff like that. And then I was like, hang on a second, I can't get back to emails like this?
It was a couple of emails, and I think, Billy, like you said, you're offering professional development, and for those, I often sometimes you just said a lot of words there that I don't always get. Basically, Billy can come to help support either at a school or a workplace or a clinic, I suppose, and do professional development for people if they want it. And that's just basically giving you some of the skills that you teach here more practically to fit that kind of workplace or environment or whatever those people need.
Yes, and there was also a bit of like, I wonder why you're doing this from a psychoanalytical perspective. It's not just me. It's not just me and you. There's actually 13 people that dedicate significant time to this podcast. They're at Ivy Street, they're at AV1, they're at Just Add Colour, they sit on the board of Guiding Growing Minds and all that stuff. And the reason we do it, maybe, yes, I have some, attachment problems from my childhood or something, but we're just trying to, we've got this big ambitious vision of trying to make things easier for kids out there.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. Like, the book is coming out. I haven't said this to you yet, but I convinced Penguin to give us some copies to give out to listeners as prizes. So I thought starting next week we might do a free book for best Winslow Griswold that comes in. And then I thought for the reflection one we could do a free book for the best question or feedback or advice.
Yes.
So I thought that would be pretty cool to do. I'm also trying to see if we can get a PCP listener discount from one of the suppliers. So we'll see if we can pull that off. The other quick update before we get stuck into it, we're up on YouTube.
Oh, no,
So you and I checked it out. So phenomenal work from Ivy Street and AV1.
Yeah, a little bit too much HD. It's my feedback. Soften a few things, please. I looked at that wide and I don't know.
I reckon you look amazing, mate. I reckon the more visuals they get of you and your outfits, the better.
How about a little bit of makeup? Can we get a 14th person helping in here, mate?
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. That's it. Well, that will be the 14th. So if there's any makeup artists out there,
got a big job for you. Could net you an Oscar.
Yes, exactly. Took away crow's feet. But no, so yeah. Should we kick off with
Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's rip in. So we've got a couple of feedbacks to start with, and then we're into shorts, and then we're into longs, and then we've got a great piece of feedback. And it's not that it's a great feedback on us and what we do. The person's journey, amazing.
Yeah.
And what a giveaway, everyday fellow that has just evolved. So I'm thrilled when I read that one this morning. Got to admit, Billy and listeners, I cried 3 times reading some of these.
Yeah, really?
Well, not like in a mess, but I emoted 3 times. So,
Yep. So maybe if you're okay with this, I might do second bit of feedback.
Totally.
And I'll do the guy's story at the end.
Thank you. I would enjoy the chop out.
We got some feedback. I haven't sent you this that spoke about how
Here we go.
how trying to say this in a no, it was amazing feedback about the quality of our voices.
Oh, you should hear us without the microphones. Billy and I, we're going to start, I promise we're going to start the episode. I kid you not, when we walk in this room, and I nearly asked us to put on the other night as we sat here for 3 hours and talked about life and a few things. I don't like talking without the headphones and mic on because we don't sound nearly as good.
Yeah, there's something quite beautiful about these mics.
Sure is. All right, Billy, let's kick it off. Dearest Billy and Nick, firstly, I want to say thank you both for an amazing podcast. Your selflessness is taking the time and energy to provide the community with such a valuable resource astounds me. Each week as I listen to you honestly and authentically talk about the challenges of your busy and full lives, I marvel at the fact that you carve out the precious time to give to others in this way. I don't think you will ever truly know the impact you're having, but there is a pertinent passage from ancient scripture that comes to mind when I think of you both and what the podcast means to me. Whoever saves a single life is considered to have saved the whole world. Goodness. I don't really have a question. I just want to express my gratitude and share a PCP success story. I often reflect on the early years of my eldest daughter's life and the parenting journey as I am listening to the pod, and never more so than the recent ep on heat and attachment. My eldest daughter, who is now nearly 9 years old, was a beautiful, sweet baby, and I was your typical new mum, excited and terrified, but with every intention of meeting her needs and developing a securely attached bond. Unfortunately, despite my best efforts to support my gorgeous developing bub, she started displaying some confusing and challenging behaviours at around 10 months. She would bite my breast while feeding, pull pull my hair when I held her, hit and scratch me when I tried to soothe her. Over time, her behaviour became more and more challenging, with constant tantrums, daily sensory meltdowns lasting up to 60 minutes, and constant impulsive and aggressive behaviour towards myself and others. If I'm honest, by the time she was 2, there was a definite rupture in our attachment as I struggled to manage her behaviour and foolishly blamed her for it. The two of us struggled in this dynamic until we reached a tipping point when she was 6 years old. She was still having daily meltdowns and refused to go to school, grade 1, for weeks. I was at a complete loss and called up an old friend who was a developmental paediatrician and just said all these things that I had never said out loud before. Basically, I'm a bad mum and she's a bad child. The friend changed our life as he calmly explained clearly to me that there is no such thing as a bad child and I wasn't a bad mum. He helped me see that my daughter's behaviour was caused by some underlying needs that were not being met and that I needed to figure out what they were and support her accordingly. It sounds so simple now, but I was so dazed and confused from this challenging start to motherhood that I don't think I would ever have gotten there on my own. Fast forward 3 years from that conversation and my beautiful daughter is thriving. She's been diagnosed with ADHD shortly after the conversation with my friend, and my husband and I have worked tirelessly and advocated hard to support her in every way possible. However, most importantly, it is upon discovering your podcast and hearing you, Billy, say over and over again that progress comes from connection, that I came to understand the importance of repairing and rebuilding my connection with my daughter and the impact it could have on her. I'm amazed at the rapid change that simply taking the time and energy to connect with and delight in her brought to our relationship and our progress across all domains. She can now confidently explore the world, is making friends, improving at school, killing it on the basketball court, and developing creative business and fundraising ideas as she harnesses her amazing mind towards helping those less fortunate than her. She also knows that my husband and I are safe havens for her and now comes to us for love, help, and support when she needs her cup filled or when she's struggling to regulate. I can honestly say that whilst we still have our challenges and rough days, it is because of the changes and strategies that we implemented from the podcast that we now have a happy child with whom both my husband and I have beautiful connection. I want to thank you again for what you've done for us, for what you do for all your other fans. I'm grateful every day for the information and knowledge that you share. You have changed the trajectory of our daughter's life and the well-being of the entire family. Please believe me when I say you are truly saving the world.
Hold on, reading that.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Anyway. That's phenomenal. Now, this is one of the bits of feedback that I want to read. So, slight change, and I'll give you a second to bring yourself back emotionally.
It's all right, I don't need to read for the next 5 minutes, so you go for it.
Wow, Billy and Nick, what an episode about attachment. I don't think I've struggled so much with an episode before. Such a fan, and often use the information provided in my work. I work as a mental health social worker in the perinatal mental health space. The majority of my clients are mothers. I found myself conflicted with some of the information provided. The caller who felt shame about co-sleeping with their child. Well, I believe there should be no shame around co-sleeping, and I agree that if it benefits the family, then this is the best option for them. However, recently I feel sleep settling training information has been associated with poor outcomes for children and parents, and feel they must be sleep deprived out of fear they will rupture attachment, which can result in poor mental health outcomes for their children. I experienced significant postnatal anxiety and depression with both my children, which started to improve after I sought support from a sleep school. I was taught to support my children to sleep independently, and at no point were we told to let our children cry it out. It taught me to input routines that enable the whole family to feel rested and well. It literally saved my life. I sometimes suggest this option to my clients who are so severely sleep deprived and frustrated but fear they will ruin their children. Is it possible to clarify when sleep and settling support is beneficial, and to challenge the myths that unless responding to every need day and night is the only way to support healthy attachment? in part for the sake of parental mental health and for myself, feeling guilty with all the bad rap sleep training receives. Lastly, the GP who wrote in with those heartbreaking examples of clients with adversity. I think it's important to clarify as well that while all those clients experience poor attachment, their outcomes were likely linked to multiple psychosocial stresses. The reason I request this clarity is because I recognise the amount of pressure on parents to get it right in those early years, or else. Attachment is important, but there are so many structural, social and biological reasons children may suffer in the future. I recently sat through a lecture on attachment and a mother in the audience told the story of her daughter who grew up in a loving and stable family, but still suicided in her early life. Attachment is important, but it is one part of a very complex equation. Thank you again for the work you do. Love you guys. So amazing. Like, that's really helpful because I actually listened to that episode and I was so nervous that I didn't mention safe sleeping because I was like, oh God. But what I often forget is that everyone, lots of people, thankfully, which is amazing, haven't listened to every single episode. We did an entire 2 episodes on this. As this person correctly identifies, sleep training is not crying it out. It's one option that is associated with, concerns in attachment and things like that. But I'm very lucky that a lot of my families benefit from sleep schools, mother-baby units and people like that. Yep. The problem is there's a lot of snake oil out there. There's a lot of this is the one way to get a child to fall asleep and all this stuff. And people make a lot of money who aren't trained in this space without naming individuals. It's really important that families do understand that sleep training is an important component, but you've got to do it in the way that is appropriate for the child in front of you. And you and I went into great detail around this and an Adam Sandler movie, Big Daddy.
Big Daddy.
Yeah, because the little kid struggles to fall asleep on his own. But yeah, what we're trying to do is calmly, gently show them how to self-soothe in a component that is sleeping. The gentler you do it, the longer it takes. And some parents need it done really quick. So it is not the determinant of that. So thank you for clarifying that. The second thing about the GP, I completely understand what they're saying, but we need to remember, and I didn't explain this well, secure attachment is not built just by how you parent your child. Environmental stresses, such as all the ones that this person mentioned, fracture attachment. They fracture feeling safe and secure in the world. So I think the GP was right. All of those have something to do with attachment. Also, the podcast is trying to do something achievable. It's very hard for the podcast to change poverty, to change racism, to change all the awful things. But what I hope we're trying to do is give people practical ways to emphasize attachment. And even kids who are self-harming or have suicidal thoughts, we focus on attachment, remembering that the security of the attachment is not determined by how the parent feels, it's determined by how the kid feels. And a lot of phenomenal parents, it's about reinforcing and continuing to do what they're doing so that the child looks around and constantly sees they are safe, supported, celebrated and delighted in, and then helping with all those other things. But it's really important. The podcast will grow because of that type of feedback, and I just really appreciate both of them sending it in. The other one I can't read out because there's too much personal stuff, but I just wanted to say one of the criticisms the other one had was that I never actually said what attachment is. And that person gave me something beautiful, which I'm going to read out, which is what they say as an adult psychiatrist about attachment. Attachment describes the early relationships we have with our primary caregivers, which goes on to inform our fundamental beliefs about ourselves, other people, and the world around us. These beliefs are usually both very strongly held, but kept out of our minds in our unconscious. If attachment is secure, we believe that we are worthy, good people, that other people can be trusted, and that the world is a safe place to explore. If attachment is insecure, we may believe that we are bad or unworthy, that people are unsafe, unkind, or likely to abandon us, and that the world is a dangerous place. Beautiful. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, I think it's a great description. A simpler one, because I'm a simpler person, is can I count on people and am I worthy of love? That's how I think about it.
Yeah, that's what you want.
Yeah.
That's the takeaway. The unconscious takeaway.
Yeah.
For a kid.
For all of us.
Yes.
I need that.
I know.
I get that from Annalise. I get that from you. As good looking as you are, it's not a romantic love, but it's a really deep, affectionate one. And I feel better about myself and about the world when I have time with you. And that's what we want our kids to have.
Yes, no.
You know, like that's, mate, we'll talk about it
shouldn't be
next
joking.
step, but I've got some amazing time with you in the last fortnight. It's been really important to me and my mental health
Good.
because of attachment.
Yes.
So thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Shorts.
As we kick off the shorts, I'm eyeing the box of tissues. It's about 3 metres away, and I am a bit annoyed at its distance. So just bear with me, people. 1 second. I'm just running over to grab it.
It's like the time when we had the amazing Beck Harris, the only guest we've ever had. We're still getting a lot of... we'll keep that edit in just to prove that you're not faking it. I don't think anyone questions how genuine Nick is. But, I remember we had the noisy heater cranking and we were like trying to kick it while we were recording, knowing we were going to do 1 take. So apologies for people that listen to that episode, and I hope it doesn't encroach on how phenomenal Beck is. Cool, the shorts.
Shorts, let's kick it off, Dr. Billy. Billy, if your baby cries at daycare pickup, but still comes with their arms up, is this an insecure attachment?
No, that's proximity seeking. It's beautiful.
Oh.
So, yeah. Evie does this. When Evie, sometimes at daycare, especially when we had to send her back there because the person who looks after them was like, don't think I can do 5 12-hour days. So she does 4 of them. And so they do a week of daycare. But at the start, Evie really struggled, and she'd see me burst into tears and run over and give me a big hug. And it was because it's a really emotional thing when you come back to your safe haven. And so that's what that child is showing. Also, we got heaps of questions about, my kid doesn't care when I come. Am I not a safe and secure attachment? God, no. That's,
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
No, but it's... no.
Everyone asks it.
Yeah, well, no, I laugh because I remember your story about how you realised you had to bring snacks, otherwise they wouldn't want to come home
They
with you.
wouldn't come home with me. I'd get there before snack hour, just before snack hour, and they'd be like, "You're too early."
Yeah, exactly.
I need 90 cents worth of rice crackers, old man. So I'd turn up with my pockets full of those seasoned rice crackers, and it was like Hansel and Gretel, just put them on the ground and they'd follow me out.
Yeah, that's so. I've seen you do it. I've done that with you. It's beautiful. But yeah, so good example of you, mate. You're a beautiful secure attachment figure for Evie, and she doesn't get to see you much. But God, watching her be, just lighting up in front of you.
I'm amazing in small doses, no doubt.
No, you're amazing with multiple kids as well. Doing the 3 kids on the swing the other day, all at once.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I don't reckon I could have handled a 3rd child. I felt like an 80s synthesizer player. It's like the different stacks of synth, they like synth stabbing everywhere like this, and they like turn around, there's another synthesizer. Anyway, exhausting. Hey, Billy, how to model secure attachment to your kids when you yourself have past trauma?
Yeah, so we had a lot of questions about this. Like, I don't have secure attachment, so how do I, model that and develop that? It's important to recognise there's 2 answers to that. There's, get support for the own trauma you've experienced, and all of us should be doing that. And the other thing is you have a beautiful, compassionate, empathetic perspective on how important relationships are in your life. As we've said before, they can be the most harmful things in our world when relationships change and they're threatened and they end and they're severed and they hurt us. But they heal us better than anything else in the world too. So, understanding what we've talked about, being sensitive, responsive, consistent, really in tune with kids, that is how we do it for all of us, including those of us that have experienced trauma ourselves. It's, a beautiful little trick that... one of the amazing, attachment researchers talks about is try and think what's going on for this little kid, but don't ask them. So what's going on for this little kid in front of me? In times of joy as well.
Yeah, okay. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Just reflecting upon, maybe I could change that tactic, which I do. I ask them, what's going on?
But it's a beautiful tool all the time. Like, if I'm struggling in an interaction with you, I wonder what's happening for Nick. If I'm struggling with parenting with Annalise, it's very easy, especially someone like me, to make it all about me. But if you can sit there and go, I wonder what's happening for this other person, it's a beautiful therapeutic way to try and heal things.
Henry does that when I'm getting stressed. She goes, I'll be like, the tea towels are all wet on the floor. She goes, we're not talking about the tea towels, are we, Nick? And I'm like, no, we're not, Henry. Very perceptive.
Bloody tea towels. We got
it'll be that thing. She's like, we're not talking about this, are we? This isn't what it is. Anyway.
Yeah, beautiful.
She spots me. Hey, Billy, how to help older generations see that secure attachment parenting isn't a lack of discipline or soft?
Yeah, get them to try it. The beautiful thing about this parenting approach is it doesn't take long to feel really good about yourself and the interaction you're having with the kids. So just try it. I had a beautiful dad come in the other day, and his kid's having a lot of emotional difficulties, late primary school age boy. And he was amazing. He came in all of his work gear, straight from work off a construction site, and came in. His first time I met him, I met mum and the daughter and son a fair bit.
Mm.
And he's like, Billy, I can't let him threaten my wife, threaten my sister. I have to hold him, pin him. I feel so bad doing it. But when he's flipping out and all this stuff. And it was amazing because we got to talk about that experience, but then we talked about how does that make you feel? What's going on for you in those moments? And he was beautiful. He's like, yeah, I just want to learn how to meet his needs better. And it was about his relationship with his son. It wasn't about protecting his wife and his daughter from him. And yeah, it's it's an honour to get to have that conversation with that dad. And you could just see the boy who was sitting there next to his dad, just watching me and watching his dad, gauging how it was going. And it's what it's all about is, how do we do this? And especially if it's grandparents, just get them to give it a shot. And you'll find that and it's also not about, I do everything for you. Sometimes it is about, hey, you can do this on your own. But, guiding them in, celebrating their ability, all that stuff, not when they're completely overwhelmed and screaming and really anxious and terrified, saying you can do this on your own.
Can't learn it.
Stiff upper lip.
No.
That's not the approach. But, yeah, get them to try it. It doesn't take long to feel good about it and see that it works.
Yeah, there's a ripping question on courage later.
Yes.
Yeah, so good. Hey, Billy, how to help build secure attachment while keeping boundaries?
Yeah, so boundaries are actually a part of secure attachment.
Okay.
So consistency is important.
Consistency is a boundary?
Yeah, well, we remember we talked about how if boundaries move, kids will constantly test them. So boundaries about how we interact, what your role is in this family, what your role is in this relationship with me. That's about creating consistent, predictable reactions, responses, the way that our relationship exists. So that's why, if you're not a touchy-feely, affectionate person, we're not asking you to do that. We're asking you to do what works for you, what makes you feel warm about the relationship, all those things. So it's important, and that's what we've talked about before in the parenting styles, maybe. The laissez-faire, I just want to be your mate. Has negative consequences in the life course in terms of development, because kids really struggle with those boundaries. Kids without boundaries really, really struggle, especially young kids.
Oh, okay.
Because it's scary. I think it's the second chapter of the book.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've reread chapter 5.
Yeah. I asked Penguin to send you a hard copy because they're like, we'll send free copies to people of influence. And guess whose name is at the top of that list? Uncle Nick.
I need it because I'm trying to highlight on a PDF and it's ugly. And I'd love a hard copy.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you for the audio because you've done an audio component to the book, is that right?
Yeah.
Unreal.
I've sobbed through the second half of it. The second half of the book's, pretty emotional.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Hey, Billy, is it possible to repair an adult-child relationship as the child?
Possible, but avoid it at all costs.
Why?
Especially young kids shouldn't repair relationships with adults. As adults, we hold the primary responsibility and ownership.
Is this person asking as someone who's my age, saying, can I repair one with my mum and dad? Is that kind of what they're saying, maybe?
But possibly, that's true, possibly. The hard thing is, even in those situations, and I have significant awful personal experience with it, that it's not your responsibility, and when it's two adults it should be an equal responsibility. When it's an adult and a child, the majority of the responsibility sits with the adults.
Because you can create a safe sort of environment to sort of do that,
definitely.
take
But
the
also a lot
correct
of kids
actions.
that have come from divorced parents feel like they hold responsibility. And so often the parent they see less, they always have to be great and perfect around them because they feel like they hold responsibility of continuing that attachment, and they're the ones. Dad used to be here, but he's not anymore, so I always have to make sure I never distress him, I never flip out. Kid comes back to mum after every second weekend, completely melts down and loses himself because they're just holding back emotions because they don't want to threaten that attachment figure. Really, really common. I'd see that every week.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Really?
yeah, I had the same thing myself.
That makes absolute sense.
Mm.
Oh, my God. It's kind of like the kid that comes home from school who's been good at school all day and just
Yeah.
explodes because they've struggled. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Billy, what can we do for children in foster care who often have several primary caregivers?
Yeah, so a lot of the original research was actually done on this in kids that were in orphanages and stuff like that. And what they found is that if there was a consistent, predictable person, which doesn't have to be a parent, who could step in as that, caregiving figure, it is really protective and it does help that child develop secure attachment. So every kid needs at least one.
Yeah.
And if I meet kids in clinic that don't have one, I find that one person. And also, I got a lot of questions about, like, how do I model this? I'm a teacher or I'm a clinician. I don't get to see them much. There's a really beautiful approach called EFT that uses attachment theory therapeutically in clinical practice. And what it talks about is that emotionally focused therapy that of like what they're really saying is that you role model a safe, warm, predictable relationship, and then you explore like those feelings and things from that safe base or harbour that we talk about from from attachment theory as well. So that's how. Find the one person. Foster kids need it more than anyone else.
Okay. Hey, Billy, I was told I pick up my baby too much every time they cry. Is it true they won't be independent?
No, God, no. Yes, Charlie's in trouble if that's the case because he has figured out how to be carried around the entire day. So he's like a little emperor.
Yeah,
but
he really is.
And he's very much loving it. So he's, yeah. So no, but it does talk to, and this person's not at risk of this, but we do have to remember that half of the circle of security is helping kids move away from us and succeed at that. Mm-hmm. And so that's not the little baby. That's like, yeah, that's the kid. Once this is the research that from like, even early on, attachment really starts from 6 months on, but even early on, that proximity seeking is helpful. Kids, when they're crawling or reaching and doing all that stuff, we've also got to show them that they start getting early ability of independence as well. But as with everything, not in distress.
Okay. Hey, Billy, can you tell your child you love them too much? I say it almost every time she's upset.
No. God, no. If that was true, Evie would be stuffed. Because I think it's a beautiful thing to say I love you when a kid's distressed. I say it all the time. I have this thing that I do to Evie where I say, can I tell you a secret? A secret, the answer is always I love you. But it's quite funny because I stole it off Annalise. Annalise used to say it to me. And one time I was like stressed out. I was like, yeah, I know you love me. And anyway, she never says that anymore now. She's like, nope, you blew it. to stir me up. But I stole it and I do it with Evie. And now Evie does that with me, except she's 3. She's not in her 30s when I blew it. She's like, yeah, you love me. I love you too. Like quickly because she's playing and stuff and she just knows that I'm doing that thing.
She wants to play.
Yeah. So yeah, beautiful. With longs?
We're
now?
longs.
Longs.
We're into longs. They're long.
Yeah, they're long, but they're good.
Oh, they're great.
Mm.
Oh, they're the longs. Hey, Billy. Oh, hey, legends. Love it. My husband and I absolutely love your pod. We recommend it to anyone who will listen. Quite regularly, we sit down after dinner to discuss the latest ep. I can't believe you read them all. You are making such a difference to up-and-coming generation. Anyway, here's my question. I hope it's not too long-winded. I had a very long traumatic birth, but after it all, we were blessed with a healthy boy. However, I suffered from severe postnatal depression. I feel like the first few months of baby life is possibly the worst few months of mine. I was in the thick of healing and the trenches of motherhood. I had an expectation of this ever-consuming, unconditional love, but I felt nothing, complete numbness. And I feel like my baby felt the same. He never smiled at me. Eye contact was limited. It was so hard to connect and to not compare with other mother-baby relationships around me. The guilt was so consuming. My baby is a year old now. I've worked so hard on myself trying to find me in all this and to be the best mother I can be for my baby. And with the support of my village, I definitely feel like we are getting there. Now he's more interactive and becoming a tiny human and the connection is now growing stronger. But I can't help but wonder, did these first 6 months affect our attachment? Is my struggle with postnatal depression affecting him? How can I do better to ensure he has a strong, secure attachment relationship? Thank you for all your hard work. And Nick, I sigh along with you.
A lot of people say that. It's great. So, yeah, amazing question. And, yeah, just one point just triggered me a bit because of a mum I saw yesterday who was in clinic with a little bub who's struggling a bit and showing a sensitivity in their temperament. And she started crying because she's like, he's the only one in the mothers group that is like this. And I really struggle to go to them because he starts crying and upsets everyone. All the other babies start crying. Like, you know, the funny thing is the kid is like developmentally just out ahead of every other kid his age. But he's just really sensitive in his temperament. And this mum is worried it's because there's something wrong with her, like this mum. So, yes, postnatal depression is about 20% of mums and dads as well, is really, you know, way too common. It's an awful period. This is why we do the Unsettled Babies Clinic, and it does challenge attachment. The research shows us that. It doesn't guarantee insecure attachment, though. And there is a way that we respond to that. If anyone's interested in going deeper into this, Edward Tronick, a developmental psychologist in the 70s, who's very high, and I don't want to start compensating and like justifying with the evidence for everything I say now, but he showed what was called the still-faced baby experiment. Have I shown you that? Anyway, it's a video where just in 3 minutes a mum sits with a baby in front of her who's about a year old, and she is interacting with the bub, and then she just still-face, so just stonewalls the kid. And the kid like points, reaches out, delights, does everything it can to try and get this mum to react. She doesn't, melts down and becomes completely disorganised and distressed. And it shows just how quickly that happens. Now, the reason that experiment is fine is because it's one instance. What we worry about is that happening consistently to kids, and then they have insecure attachment, learn they're not safe, and the, you know, parent with depression who isn't able to meet their needs and respond to them and be sensitive isn't there. And that's how they frame up their mindset of the world. You know, it's the environment is unsafe, I'm not valued, and I can't rely on other people to support me and protect me and celebrate me. So it's really important that what we understand, though, is once again, like, get that clinical support. And the people who do this work are phenomenal, including some of the people that send in feedback. But also understand that you just emphasise the interaction, the delight, the attachment, the responsiveness with that little bub, with that toddler, with that teenager. Like, that's where attachment shows us that the value comes from. So, yes, really important.
Wow, I like that.
Thank you. It's a great question.
This one's to do with sleep training, Dr. Billy. Dr. Garvey and Nick. I might be a little late getting this to you, but totally understand if the feedback is well past cutoff, but I feel compelled to reach out after listening to episode 87. Firstly, Dr. Billy Garvey. Dr. Garvey. Thank you for normalising the juggling of working parents in demanding jobs. I'm a criminal defence lawyer and national leader of the team. I came back to work full-time with my first baby, was 14 weeks, and the second was 19 weeks. In large part, this was an economic necessity, but I also love my job and, like you, feel like I can make a real difference. It's been hard to compare my day-to-day schedule with that of peers who don't work in the same industry or even live in Sydney. And at times, I've felt and feel selfish and like I'm not making the best choice for my family. Listening to you share the juggle that you and your wife undergo regularly makes me feel a lot less alone. Nick, I wish I had a best friend like you. We all need a Nick in our lives. My baby's in our 2.5 and 6 months old. My question relates to sleep training and attachment off the back of the question you answered in episode 87. I sleep train with my firstborn. He was IUGR.
Intrauterine growth restriction. So just a little bub.
Okay. And spent a week in special care at birth and had constant problems from the start. Although I realised this much more in hindsight now, not knowing what was normal at the time and being branded a neurotic first-time mum who didn't know better to begin with. He had serious problems feeding, including full-blown aversions, both breast and bottle at times. I suspect in hindsight he had reflux, but it was not diagnosed or treated at the time. He also has a full-blown anaphylaxis, dairy allergy, and I never cut dairy from the diet, so that might not have helped. He also had severely large adenoids culminating in surgery when he was 11 months old. The surgeon said they blocked the entire nasal cavity. As a consequence, he couldn't learn to eat solid food properly until he was nearly 1. These factors all contributed to a situation where he was sleeping terribly, apnea from the adenoids, and breastfeeding all night long. He did sleep train when he was medically cleared after his surgery. He was 13 months at the time. I was desperate. I hadn't slept for more than 2 hours at a time since he was born. I was working more than full-time in my incredibly demanding job. My husband couldn't settle him at night. It all fell on me. My son, bless him, is incredibly bright. He's always been ahead on the physical and developmental milestones. He's incredibly stubborn, strong-willed, and at times difficult. Chip off the old block, eh? We tried gentler methods for trying to soothe him in ways he didn't want to be soothed. Pick up, put down, reassure, but don't pick up, etc. Made it worse. Like full-scale meltdowns. He had head banging on the cot. We actually found the more we tried to settle him, the worse he got. So we eventually laid on the floor with him in his room, but did nothing else until he slept. It was 3 hours of crying night 1, but quickly it was none. In 3 days, he was sleeping independently within minutes of being put to bed. A key part in this happening quickly was the introduction of some stuffed animals in the cot, which really seemed to help him settle quickly. I threw them in on a whim on night 1, and he's never let go of them since. He still loves these toys 1.5 years on, takes them everywhere. I cannot tell you how conflicted I felt through the process and still feel about having done it. But the sleep it gave me saved my sanity and my mental health. I still worry that I have messed up massively by doing what we did. Does he lay awake at night wanting us but just doesn't bother yelling or crying anymore? It horrifies me. Or was he just being stubborn and perfectly capable of learning how to sleep independently? I don't know. I honestly don't. Part of the concern centres around the attachment to the 2 stuffed animals. Did they replace me? Is this a bad thing? Does this continued fixation with them mean he's not getting what he needs from me with attachment and seeks it from the stuffed toys instead?
Amazing question. So we're going to park the stuffed toys because I've got a later question that is
yes, we do.
Really powerful,
it is
about
powerful.
that.
Yeah.
But no, you have not been replaced by the stuffed toys. Yes, we'll talk about it with the other question. So when I talked about the sleep stuff and controlled crying specifically, I was thinking, and co-sleeping, I was thinking about all the families I see that feel shame about having co-slept. Who I don't see much is families that have successfully used this stuff, and I should have been thinking about them, and that mental health social worker really helped me to remember that. No, you've done what you need to do. You also haven't left him. You were there. You were in the room,
correct,
on the mattress. Like, yes, he was distressed, but you were there.
Yeah.
And so that is not crying it out. That is not Faber. That is not like any of the other harsher ones. This parent feels like it was harsh, but it wasn't. And you figured out what works for that child. Some things that you did, which might work for a lot of kids, cause more distress. So it's what actually suits that individual child, not some scripted, this works for every baby thing. So you haven't challenged that. And self-soothing is a really important thing that little babies from about 6 months can learn. But yeah, as we've said, the gentler, the longer it takes, but, just doing it. But there are lots of families where their mental health trumps completely how gentle we can do that. And as we've said, it is not the only determinant of attachment.
Yep.
So yeah, beautiful question.
Yeah, ripping question. Hey, Billy, number 3. This one's about daycare and attachment. Not sure if I'm meant to read these out each time.
Yeah. Go
Sorry.
for it.
Hey, Dr. Billy and Nick. We're a family of 4 with a 10-month-old and a 3.5-year-old. I've been on maternity leave for the past 10 months and have just been given notice that our youngster has been accepted into daycare. It's such a bittersweet moment for me, as part of me looks forward to going back to work, but another part of me worries and is sad that I won't get to spend more time with our baby. What is the evidence behind parents who work full-time and those that stay at home with their kids, and how that affects attachment? I am hopeful that we can still raise emotionally and socially healthy boys, as it seems you both are in the same boat. I came to Australia when I was 6 years old and have little memories of my parents, if I'm being honest. Most of my childhood was spent with grandparents, and sometimes I wonder whether they were saving graces and that perhaps they were my secure attachments. My mother and I haven't always had a good relationship with a non-present father growing up. I became entwined in a lot of unhealthy relationships. Though, through it all though, I did have lots of strong friendships, which I think are the reason why I was able to turn it around. Today, I'm rebuilding my relationships with both my mum and my dad in the hopes that they will be present in my children's lives and that this new family that we've created will begin to heal us all. I'm writing this email with my baby napping beside me and feeling quite emotional, so I might have accidentally overshared. The work you both do is valuable for the next generation of parents. I'm so grateful to be part of the pop culture parenting community, and I hope your podcast reaches many more people in the future. P.S. I have pre-ordered your book, Dr. Billy, and can't wait to read it.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Just reminded me very quickly, we get a lot of questions about if the book's available overseas. The book and the podcast are about creating a community, not a financial success, that's for sure. But the book isn't available overseas yet because Penguin Australia just has Australian rights. So if anyone's listening who has any relationship or connection with publishers overseas, especially in the States and the UK where our second and third biggest communities are, please reach out because the book is a reach tool. It's about how do we get into more communities and get visibility and get abilities to connect and combine powers. This parent's question about childcare is an important one and one that a lot of us feel guilt and shame about our kids going into childcare. The evidence about it is, we've spoken about this before, but in regards to specifically attachment, is that the quality of the childcare is dependent and also if you're talking about boys or girls.
Oh.
So girls moving into childcare have an easier time forming attachment figures that are secure with non-parental adults.
Why?
Lots of reasons. One of the primary ones is we are different with boys and girls.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah. I'm going to go on the imperfect soon and talk about that in a little bit more detail to try and address some of the garbage that's out there. But so we need to be gentler and more sensitive with boys. Also, girls have an easier time and boys benefit more than girls from high quality childcare. And you might be asking, what does high quality childcare look like in attachment? Some of it is to do with ratios, a lot of it is to do with training. Once again, this is something that we do with early educators. I think I've spoken to early educators 5 times in the last 2 months at conferences and workshops. Understanding how to respond to individuals, but also the evidence is really cool about how an early childhood educator supports attachment within a group is really powerful. So Evie has one person that has, if they're there, I know her day is going to be easier because she sees them as a secure attachment figure. But what they really want to try and harness is how do I use that safety of the harbour and the attachment that educator has to have secure attachment with the group. So it's a really important thing to be able to watch and say, yeah, I'm a safe harbour for this kid. I delight in them, celebrate them, support them, are sensitive and respond to them. But I also foster their ability for pro-social development. And secure attachment has so much to do with life course. Once again, I'm not going to send the evidence, but we know that this predicts life course outcomes, but specifically pro-social development.
Hey, weird question. I have been listening for the last 2.5 episodes, but I don't think anyone's asked this. Do you have can friends be secure attachment?
Yeah, mate, you're a secure attachment for me.
Yeah, sorry, I mean because to your point around having a carer that they're really connected with. I know my daughter, my youngest, she's I don't want to say the kid's name. I don't know why I don't want to say the kid's name. But, are they going to be there today? I'm like, yeah, and they're like, sweet.
Yeah, totally. It's less often in the early years and as you get older, same age peers, especially from middle primary school up. But often it's primary caregivers and non-parental adults that dominate secure attachment development in early life. But think about especially teenagers, peers trump parents often, a predictable, safe peer. And this is why antisocial behaviour in kids that have insecure attachment, they get around each other and they have mental health problems because they don't have secure attachment figures or secure peer relationships.
Gotcha.
Which is another, side note I shouldn't go down right now, but we will address in the future.
Sure we will. Hey, Billy. This is referring to a question you had earlier, so about attachment to things. So, I'll just ask a question, you do the answering. Hey, Dr. Billy and Nick, I'm so grateful for the work you put out there with the podcast. I've learned so much already. I don't know if this email will get through, but I really need help. As you say, I feel like I'm drowning. My precious, beautiful little boy, 2.5, is exhibiting a behaviour that is causing us some tremendous amount of stress. He has an attachment to a hat his dad gave him and he insists on wearing it every day, all day. He immediately cries or screams if I even suggest that we take a break from the hat. The biggest issue, however, is that he screams at me all day to tighten his hat, which involves taking the hat off and putting it back on his head at least 30 to 50 times a day. He completely breaks down if I can't do it while driving, for example. He can't focus on play when he is always worried about his hat, and I feel fried by all the yelling and distress. As a bit of background, we have moved twice in 4 months, and his dad and I have an unhappy relationship. I'm trying desperately to get his dad on board with more aware or gentle parenting practices, but he doesn't seem able or willing to meet me on the bridge, which has caused tension and resentment over the last couple of years. While we are now in a safe neighbourhood and a nice home, the tensions between Dad and I remain. I cannot leave at this time due to financial limitations. I don't have any secure attachment figures in my life. My mum and brother are extremely conditional in their love and communication with me and to me. If I step out of line, question anything, or make a mistake, I'm stonewalled by them for weeks or months. I grew up as an awkward child, being told I was too sensitive or that I was adopted because they just couldn't understand me or my temperament. My father, who was more kind and understanding towards me, passed away brutally from cancer while I was pregnant. I feel like I have been so raw ever since. I believe I've experienced a lot of hardship due to my early insecure attachment, multiple violent partners, transactional friendships, etc. And I don't want this for my son. I've tried desperately to provide him with secure attachment through baby weaning, maybe?
Wearing, yeah.
Oh, baby wearing, sorry.
Just as in the thing you love, mate. Wearing the baby.
Oh, okay, sorry. By baby wearing, breastfeeding and bed sharing. And I respond to his emotions and needs with empathy and understanding as much as possible. But with the hat issue, I just don't know what to do. Am I feeding his fixation on the hat by agreeing to repeatedly tighten it? Am I not responding to a need if I can't? How do I help my precious boy? That's tough.
Really tough, really tough. And it's funny, I was always told I was too sensitive as a kid, but in a less kind of harmful way as a joke. I was also told I must have been adopted from royalty because I wanted material things.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have money. Where'd you come from? It's quite funny because now I'm completely not materialistic, and it's probably from that. I'm trying to convince Annalise to let me keep the 2006 Subaru.
Not even I can stand by and watch that. All right, Billy. Tell us about this, because this doesn't feel like this is acting as like a comforter, but it's not like a comforter. Like my girls have, one of them has bunnies and the other one has a sleeping bag they can't fit in, but they just gnaw on. So
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like I can take them away.
So have you heard of a comfort object?
Is that a comforter?
Yeah,
No.
It can be.
Yeah.
Yes, it
Well,
can be a
I
comfort.
think like bunnies. or the
Blankie,
sleeping
bunny,
bag.
teddy bear.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you know the other name for them?
No.
Attachment object.
Attachment object. Okay.
Yeah, Winnicott. I'm obviously a bit sensitive about the lack of people criticising evidence. There's good evidence that what kids will do in development, early first year of life, they see themselves and the primary caregiver as one. Baby is one. Charlie's working very hard to remain at one with Annalise. But what he's actually learning is that, because what they realise, they think they're one with the primary caregiver, and they think that they have this, I think it's called omnipotence or whatever, where I want something, it comes straight to me, and it's just because I thought about it, whereas in reality it's because we're all working very hard to figure out what that baby wants. A little kid wants, but they think they're God and they're powerful and they just get stuff straight away. Yes. When they start to learn that's not true, that a primary parent is not physically them and they're a different person and have different things, and these things don't immediately come to them, they will often find a transition comfort or attachment object, and they're all interchangeable terms we use for this. And yes, often they are healthy, great sources of comforting anxiety, especially on separation of attachment, such as at bedtime. I sleep with this teddy. There's some research that shows like 30% of adults still sleep with a teddy or comforter or something like that, which is not worrying. The worrying thing about this kid is the dysfunction that it's causing. And this kid, you know, possibly from an insecure attachment perspective, maybe from dad, and that's why that he's replicated the hat his dad gave him with his dad.
Yeah.
And he's constantly checking, assessing, testing the security of that. Now, there is evidence, once again, around attachment to objects, attachment to food and things like that. There's good evidence that insecure attachment can lead to childhood and adult obesity, for example, which we talked last time. But yes, this kid is, you know, really distressed, and it is not because the parent, the mum, is not providing secure attachment, possibly not because dad is either. It's just this kid is showing significant clinical levels of anxiety and they need to go and get support for it. And, you know, this would be a kid that someone like me would love to meet in clinic, especially with a parent like this parent sounds. The other thing, which is like thinking about when you're not on the same page to this level as a parent, trying to realise that kids are watching the security of attachment with their primary caregivers as well, and when that is dysfunctional, it can be have negative consequences on what they see as secure attachment. So I would prioritise addressing this with your partner and just trying to, from a loving, gentle perspective, say, hey, we both adore this kid. We need to get on the same page here and figure out why it's important and what's going on with us, and then get some support in how to respond. But keep meeting his needs, be sensitive, like give yourself a break when it's the car and you can't get to it, but get the kid help. They're just shooting up a flare. Will
the kid potentially just become sick of the hat eventually?
No, the hat is symbolic of the distress that the kid is experiencing, and it's, you know, an attempt at making it a comfort or attachment object, but it's not working. So the teddy bears, like the soft toy from the previous question, that's a successful attachment object. This is one that's not succeeding in providing comfort. It's increasing.
The kid can't function.
Well, it's not.
Sorry.
It's no. Obsessionally.
Yeah.
Constantly checking it, constantly stressing about it. The kid's way too young for like OCD and stuff like that. So I'm not suggesting that. It's more that, but it's just that like level of distress that it is not relieving distress. So
gotcha, it's not
succeeding as a attachment object.
Okay, cool. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, amazing parent.
Yeah, amazing. Hi, Nick and Billy. I'm such a fan of the podcast. My most frequent start to a sentence is, I learned on the Pop Culture Parenting podcast. I love the attachment episode. So daunting, but also so much hope. My partner, man friend, baby daddy, and I have 2 kids, 4.5, 2.5. 2.5-year-old just doesn't want to have a bar of his dad at the moment. I understand that I am his primary attachment. I breastfed for 18 months. Took the first year off work and I'm still the primary carer. My partner travels interstate for work most weeks. But it's heartbreaking for my partner and exhausting for me. If my partner goes to our son when he wakes up at night, he is screamed at to go get mum. If I try to have a sleep in because I've been up all night with him, he gets extremely dysregulated. My favourite, if Dad tries to change his pooey nappies, he is screamed at and I have to do it, even on my birthday. My partner is an amazing father. He's creative in the way he parents and does lots of things that I learn from your podcast naturally. What can we do to help build a relationship between these two? Is it the attachment between me and our son, or Dad and our son, that needs to be worked on? Great question. We have lots of friends that experience similar issues, so hoping this is a question that gets covered off in the reflection. Thank you for all that you do. I'm trying to work out a reason to get Billy in to speak at my work. Long stretch as we're consultants, but I'll keep trying.
Yeah, there's stuff coming through Guiding Growing Minds. There's a website that's getting designed that'll be up soon that'll explain this and try and move it away from egocentricity of Dr. Billy to Guiding Growing Minds. So,
and if they need to be numbed and lulled into anything, I can come and talk just separately.
Mate.
I'll riff on anything for an appearance.
I'm still hoping for our 100th episode at the end of the year. It's going to be live.
Well, I was going to say, Billy,
we're going to hit 1 million downloads as well pretty soon. So
I know, Billy, and we've got to think about getting the book translated into Portuguese if we're going to go all the way to the Maracana Stadium in Brazil. Our sights are set on 200,000 people.
Well, I refuse to let anyone else read the audiobook, so
You're good at many things, but Portuguese ain't your thing. And you say Nando's. Go, Billy.
I want to ask you this. Cast your mind to a scenario where the girls won't let Henry do anything to support them, and it has to be you every time. What are you going to do about it? Daddy has to be daddy. Daddy has to do everything, and it's always. Even on your birthday, it has to be them. in the middle of the night.
What would I do?
Yeah, what would you do?
I haven't really been faced with this, let me tell you. I'd probably bask in it for a Sorry, I'm not trying to make light. I'm like, I'm sorry, I have what this question is. I'm that dad. I go in.
Yeah.
Sorry. I shouldn't.
How long would you bask in?
I shouldn't.
About half a day.
It's no, and I know. I honestly, because I'm only because I've sort of seen and been through this part, and it's really hard. So bloody hard. What would I do? I would. And it was every time. Like it's so foreign to me.
What would you like Henry to do?
I would like Henry to. Yeah, you've really thrown me with the way you want to do it because it's usually the other way around. I would just try and give Henry more opportunities to do it. So if the kid's only coming to me, I'd try and bring Henry in on the situation and kind of do a bit of a handover.
And what would determine whether you persist with trying to bring the other parent in or not?
I think how receptive the parent is and how nice we are to each other in that situation, the kid would probably pick up on it and be like, oh,
beautiful.
They're all right.
And what are you watching in the kid?
Reaction in their face because they're young and their temperament.
Yeah. And what are you looking for that'll say we can keep going? And what are you looking for that'll say we need to stop?
Smiles.
What if there's nothing positive?
A lack of negative.
Yeah. So for example,
lack of distress in the child.
Yeah. Yvette is really struggling with this at the moment. So this is why this is such a great timely question. So Evie's like, as I've already said, melting down because when's mummy coming home? And I'm not sure if she is, like as in before she goes to bed. So she's really stressing and seeking out like predictability and security in her attachment figures. But interestingly, last night, massive meltdown because Daddy has to read the book to me in bed. Gotcha. And I'm like, this is a chance that Annalise can actually bank a bedtime story. So what we were watching, and Annalise does this, like this person's partner, like just naturally, I'm doing it, from a very well-trained perspective. I'm watching and seeing, like, is it frustration or is it fear? So from little babies, what we're trying to learn is when they're really flipping out, is it frustration or fear? With fear, if we think it's fear, we support them and comfort them and show them they're safe. Frustration tolerance is a component of development that helps with emotional regulation. And so when it's frustration, they're just annoyed and they're preferencing one. Because in attachment, there's a hierarchy of attachment figures. And often mum is the most important one. And that's what you're experiencing because Henry is the dominant attachment figure. You are still just as valuable. But that's why the preference will happen in that way. But when you want to, because you're not helping out as much as you'd like to, or your partner's struggling because they have to do everything, it is times in frustration that you can push a little bit and say, no. And Annalise read the book to Yvette last night. She was blowing up for ages about it and everything, but it was frustration. It wasn't fear. Gotcha. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But everything else you said is right as well. How's our relationship going? What are we role modelling? Do we have the capacity to co-regulate this kid at the moment? All of that stuff is really important. Yeah. So that's how. It's not a question of the security of the attachment of the mum with the child. That's a really healthy, secure attachment that's I'm hearing. It's just how do we show the child, that the other secondary parent is also someone that can do this successfully in partnership.
Yep. I just want to say to this parent, I realise how exhausting it is and like not something to be basking in. It's just that I used to have this thing where I'd be in the kitchen and I'd finally get the call up to come in. They're like, well, they don't want me tonight, they want you. And I'd be like someone coming off the bench at a sports event. I'd be like stretching, going, like sort of jogging, going, yeah. I was like, how's it going in there? She'd be like, yeah, it's good, they're all right. And I'll be like, okay, all right, anything else? She's like, yeah, okay, I'm going in.
We're 4 goals up, it's the 89th minute.
You're safe to go in, Dad. So that's kind of what, otherwise I'm just there doing the dishes, just like, because we just have division of labour. It's like mum can do that part and I'll do the dishes. But it's good to get the call.
But you're the morning superstar, the golden hour.
I used to be. I'm not sure where I'm good now these days. I'm still good. I'm still good first out of the blocks in the morning. I am.
Yeah.
I am. It's you got to find your strength. I'm actually first up. I've got to wake my kids now. Not a concept you'd be familiar with. You don't wake an 11-month-old.
No, well, I made a 3-year-old. It's usually just top of the lungs screaming. It's very funny. Very quickly, Annalise was laughing a couple of days ago because I was getting up in the morning and running late as usual because of just how frantic the mornings are. And I went to get my rain jacket and there was a broom leaning against it like in camouflage. And so I grabbed the jacket and the broom fell out and slammed at like 6 in the morning and I jumped. I was like, why is this broom here? This isn't where the broom is. And Annalise was laughing because at the same time, Evie was having a meltdown about like a book's page not turning or something. And Annalise is like, I got these two redheads that are just firing up over little things, and it's beautiful because she's a perfect balance to that. Let's just say
She is. Yes, the yin and the yang.
yes,
Saw it the other night. Very balanced. She's great.
yes, yeah.
She's good.
So yes, yeah.
Hey, Billy. Hey, guys. Oh, Canadian mum and listener. I get excited. I feel like there's someone from overseas.
Yeah, mate. I want to do a
someone
test
from
of are we getting
overseas.
we're hitting every continent.
Yeah, you can tell some of the questions where if people from America, I can tell. by the
Yeah,
way
well, we
they
get a lot of
describe
Europe.
trades and they
Yeah.
describe, you can tell where they're from. Sorry, it's just really exciting. Hey, hey guys, Canadian mum and listener. I love your podcast. Your insight is digestible and practical. I'm in a unique-ish situation. My husband works long hours. I am solo parenting 13 hours a day with 4 kids. God, if you can imagine, due to their age, the twins take up a lot of my attention and physical time. I often have to say, yes, I can play in 1 second or in a few minutes. I just have to feed, change, put the nappies down, which we all know takes much longer than a second. I feel like I'm doing all that I can to foster good relationships within the siblings and happy kids. But of course, there is fighting, toy stealing, teasing. I am working on choosing my battles, safety being the priority, of course. Even sending this email, I pulled into the driveway to sneak away on the phone. Sorry, pulled in the driveway to sneak some phone time. But the twins woke up just as I'd set the phone down, and I hope I have time to come back to this. I had to write this email in phases, which is why it's so disjointed. Oh,
Which is funny because it's not.
it's funny. It's really well written.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I carry one twin out of the van to the garage and the other cries in the van. I walk back to the van to get them and then the other one cries. Same thing happens nearly every time we need to move from upstairs to downstairs. It's especially hard when I'm putting them to sleep. I have to rock one to sleep and the other usually cries until I can get to them. Often I go back and forth rocking them as each cries because I can't stand to let one cry because I can't stand to let one cry more than the other. My mum's a huge help. They've always been secure attachment with her and with my in-laws, although they can't get out as much as I need. I simply do not have enough limbs and heads to attend to everyone's needs. I could go on forever, but here's my question. Am I totally screwing up the twins as individuals because they have to wait and cry often? How do I navigate the big boys having to pine for my attention while the twins are still so needy? I feel like I can't ignore the twins' cries. They are babies, but my 3 and 5-year-olds also are still so young. The older boys get so mischievous when they know my hands are tied with diapers or feeds. They are working together, but they are working together making a huge mess of laundry or toothpaste, anything really. How can I foster working together productively? I tried to set up activities, but let's be real here. I can't always do that. I'm already up to my neck. If you managed to read through all of this, thank you. I'm sorry, it's a brain dump. There are so many layers to our family dynamics. I want everyone to know they are loved at their core. Thank you. Mum doing her best.
Yeah, what a superhero. So, yeah, they all know that they're loved. This mum, you can just tell the way she's doing it. Do you know what I mean? She just seems like that really loving, amazing parent. Remembering the quality of attachment and security of it is not determined by how much time we spend with kids. It's the quality of that time. Mm-hmm. And so this mum, I imagine, is already very good at this. You're not ruining the twins by one of them crying sometimes or frequently. A lot of it is about predictability. I know mum is going to come. you know, and that's what's really important, not mum comes immediately. So that responsiveness is not about like I immediately respond every time every child does something. And the kids will get used to those patterns. The other thing with the older boys, I understand the activity thing, but it's more about the narrative and the way that you talk about their role with their younger kids and with each other. And that's how I did it with Evie. People might remember when Evie was really struggling from an attachment perspective. She was lashing out at Charlie. I didn't stop her doing that by focusing on the negative things she was doing. I stopped her doing that by building a narrative and reinforcing it that how caring she is towards Charlie. And that's, you know, we continue to work on that every single day. We don't go, cool, she stopped doing it, let's drop it. Every single day, Yvette has opportunities for us to reinforce how loving, caring, gentle she is with Charlie and all that stuff. And we do. We have to increase, and sometimes it doesn't work. She becomes emotionally distressed because we need to meet Charlie's needs.
And is that activity like building empathy into them as well and like building up their self-esteem? That's the important stuff.
Yeah, totally. It does both those things as well. Pro-social development, she's in an empathetic window where she should be able to provide care and support. She's not in one where she should be able to, she's not old enough yet to be thinking about what Charlie's needs are in that moment and what's specific to him.
Gotcha.
That's 2 years off.
Yep.
But yeah, totally. So I think that's another important thing, and just the narrative and the way you talk about the older boys. But she's amazing. And also just like, you know, tapping in other people is a really important bit too. Like, and that's, you're someone that I'm very fortunate that taps in for me. So that's, you know, even if the dad can't be there, like you step in a lot for me, which is helpful.
No dramas. Okay, cool. Hey, Nick and Billy. I'm a mother of 2 wonderful wild children, ages 5 and 3. We are full-time farmers living on my husband's family's farm. The kids live in somewhat feral lifestyle and spend lots of time with extended family. I also coach young riders in equestrian. I'm always trying to find better ways to support children who are often in scary and high-pressure situations. Starting with a question on a personal note, can children have insecure attachments to other children and adults they spend time with, providing they are secure attachments with their main caregivers, e.g. grandparents, who withhold attachment to gain control, or an older cousin who will only play if the child's fits in with her or his game or narrative. I struggle with the role modelling healthy conflict resolution due to my own insecurities. I generally avoid conflict when it comes to our children, as I struggle to not become angry or tearful, especially when feeling protective. Second, I want to thank you for listening to your Listening to your podcast has given me so many new tools which have helped me grow as a coach, and I connect with children I teach better. I love this. I recently held a cross-country clinic. One of the girls in the group has autism, and I have been trying to find better ways to connect with her so she can feel valued and part of the group. The mum used to ride too at a high level, and in eventing, and understandably wants her child to feel some of the highs that she got to feel as a kid. This also comes with pressure. Seeing signs of her becoming overwhelmed and helping her communicate is an area I really struggle with. Early in the session, that became evident when, without warning, she turned her horse away from the jump she was approaching and totally shut down. As I had just been listening to the Courage podcast, I remembered to reduce demand and support more. It kind of went like this. Hey, I'm here with you. I thought you did a great job turning early to give yourself and your horse some time to think. When doing something which scares us, it is important we feel okay about it before asking the horse to complete it. That's great horsemanship. Would you like to have another practice over the smaller fence again, or do you feel ready to tackle this one? She said she was happy to tackle this one and did it beautifully. It was almost as if she was testing me to see if I was going to lay on the pressure or support her. When she understood I was 100% on her team, she blossomed and started to communicate really well. It was so beautiful to watch and something I will carry with me forever. In fact, all the kids worked better without pressure, just positive guidance. The pressure they put on themselves was enough. What they needed to thrive was support in good decisions and a sense of humour and some help with reflection when things don't work out. The kids are often really, really, really funny. It's partly why I love my job. I absolutely love your podcast. Thank you so much. Just going back, do you want me to read the question again?
No.
You got it. How good's that courage one?
Yeah.
Highlighted it. I was like...
Amazing. Yeah, beautiful. So, yeah, that's the best part about that question. The question about there's not the secure attachment that the kids have with primary caregivers trumps, the cousin or the grandparent that's conditional. It's just not healthy and helpful for that kid's development and their extension of what attachment looks like beyond that primary caregiver. So what I would say, the responsibility of that, though, does not sit with the child. It sits with the grandparent and the cousin or whatever. And the important bit is, how do you get them to see that, withholding and being conditional and support and engagement is not helpful or healthy, and like with everything, give them an alternative that's better.
Yep.
So that's really important. So it's not a huge threat, and it just shows that keep prioritising the importance and security of the healthy attachment that you have with the child when they are in settings like that. And I think maybe the next question is going to go a bit deeper into that.
Yep, ripping. All right. Hey, Billy, firstly, I could not be more grateful for the work you do. Please keep going. I sincerely hope this helps create the community we all desperately need. It is not my experience of community so far. I am not sure what my question is, but I know there should be one about attachment that could help me right now. I have two wonderful neurodivergent children, 10 and 12. Our boy in particular has been through so many repetitive adverse experiences with anyone outside of the home. The belief always seems to be that he could not be resilient, disciplined, courageous, clever, kind, able to have theory of mind, able to understand perspectives, or that his truth may not actually be the truth. And every single negative feedback and underestimation he has received, I have received as well. I must overprotect, not have boundaries, not understand that he can't learn theory of mind, perspective, not understand that he was probably in the wrong due to his disabilities, and therefore I am naive. The list is long. It has come from sport coaches, teachers, friends, parents, and close family. All the while, my 12-year-old can accurately point out the unconscious hypocrisy each person shows and humbly accept it anyway, arguably demonstrating his learnt and growing skills in perspective and theory of mind often pass his typical peers, but it always is unseen. No one is to blame. I understand it is human nature to not be able to recognise what we don't know and to fill the void with belief systems and to put people into a box, even if the evidence in front of you suggests the box does not fit. He's now 12. I'm exhausted. I can't change others. We are yet to identify any safe attachments for him outside of us, which is largely me. I notice lately I'm starting to believe all the negative comments we receive, and I'm falling down more often at being secure attachment. This is worrying me and him a lot. He's developed avoidant and ambivalent attachment styles. Both children have through negative experiences. I get it, given I feel it happening to me and I'm in my 40s, let alone a child. They can really throw huge metaphorical grenades that require so much tenacity for me to keep being their secure attachment regardless. I can see it may still be years before he has the opportunity to secure attachments outside of us. Is explicitly teaching and talking about him practicing being a more secure type attachment from his end a way forward now? We've been discussing how if he works on this, it may be what will help him be more likely to identify peers who are more likely to be capable of being secure attachments. We see this has happened for our daughter, which is why she does have a few now when not so long ago she also didn't. We can't claim it seemed to be a lesson she learnt through a large adverse peer event at a school. She learnt to work on her style of attachment, and it brought a different attachment style appears to her. At least this is our take on things. Does this theory seem plausible? Thank you again. Couldn't be more impressed with your work and role modelling.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, that's the last question. Because for me, it was like the most powerful one. And yeah, that parent's really struggling. Like kids with neurodiversity, you know, so much of it, we put the weight on the kid and the parent to change. And I don't think that what a phenomenal parent to be like, do I need to teach this kid to have better secure attachment? When in reality, the rest of the world needs to learn how to be more responsive to kids who are not better or worse at things, but are different. The reason that kids with neurodiversity are more vulnerable to insecure attachment from primary caregivers, but not in this case, or from the rest of the world, is because they see the world differently and they experience it differently. We talked about this in the neurodiversity episode, but relevant to attachment, for example, kids with autism, often communication to build secure attachment is mainly non-verbal. Kids with autism have a preference for non-verbal forms of communication. So it means often there is a greater sensitivity for our body posturing, our facial expressions, and all those things to not land where we want them to. So it's the same. Kids with intellectual disability, what we often do is understandably we lower our expectation of them.
Yep.
So we don't build that independence. And so what that means is that they can't leave the safe harbour as successfully as a kid without an intellectual disability because we're so worried about them.
Yep.
You can't, you know, it's like saying you can't do the monkey bars, so we're never going to give you a shot at them. And then the kid never gets good at monkey bars. You know, and what we've got to do is understand that's a vulnerability in us. Like this parent talks about, this bias that we put kids into boxes. And this is why I really worry about labelling, and there's certain diagnoses I don't use because the risk is too hard that they get put in a box that doesn't suit them or you know, help them. There is one component of this that's really helpful, and it's thinking about how do I build the skill set if this child is lacking in a certain element that means they succeed in interacting with others? The majority of the weight should sit with everyone else, but if the parent's going to do some work, try and figure it out. I've got a gorgeous girl at the moment who's in second half of primary school, and she doesn't have a single friend, and she walks around the school saying, you have to be friends with me, to everyone. She only wants to be friends with the popular kids, has no time for anyone else. The school is working exceptionally hard to try and figure this out. They're doing all this reflective practice. They sit down when bullying occurs and figure out what's gone, reflect on it, do all this stuff. They set up all these activities around the school. And do you know what the kid says? She's like, that's what the loser kids do. They go and do the colouring in sheets. They go and do that. What this kid actually needs, because she is failing every single time she tries to succeed in securing attachment with a peer, she actually needs to spend time with younger kids because they're at her level developmentally at the moment. And she will then experience the success. We can work with achievable goals on some of the social stuff that she's struggling with, and then we will lift her up. But at the moment, the stretch is too far. So it's a really important point that don't put the weight of like, this kid needs to learn how to demonstrate more secure attachment. He probably doesn't. He sounds like he's got huge skills in that. There just might be some component. The other thing is you are not alone in this, that this is not your fault, and don't try and push back against the weight of maybe everyone's right. Just find better people for this kid to be around. You know, you've experienced this, I've experienced this. There are people out there that are gentle and sensitive and will see what they will benefit from this kid being a part of their lives in the community and find those communities, and every single kid deserves to feel like that. Every single one of us deserves to feel like that we are valued and supported, people love us, care for us, and we deserve to be loved by them. And this kid deserves that too. I could rant about this for ages, but I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does make sense. It's just, yeah, a bit sad about that one.
Yeah, but it's really important, isn't it? For anyone out there with a child who is not experiencing success, do not give up. You know, you know this, mate. There's people in your life that you care about that are struggling with the same thing.
Exactly.
But what a phenomenal parent. Okay, last bit. I'm going to read some feedback that shows how amazing our podcast community is, not us, and how everyone is welcome because we're all trying to grow. If you are kind and trying to grow, we welcome you with open arms because we want to learn with you and from you. Hi, Nick and Billy. Hi, Nick and Billy, as in the beer.
I didn't get that when I read it. Heineken Billy. Heineken.
This is what I hear sometimes, not having a crack at your reading, Nick. It's the way my mind hears it. And I'm weird, which I'm sure you'll see below. And it's so funny because everyone sends in your name first. So everyone pretty much is like, hi, Nick and Billy.
Heineken Billy.
So I thought that was awesome. And this person is amazing in lots of different ways. That's one of them. I do honestly apologise in advance for what I'm sure is going to be a long read. Please let me start by expressing my deepest and most sincere thanks to both of you for your incredible work in the podcast space in relation to all things parenting. I'm not joking when I say that you guys are a massive part of why I'm here today. I came across you guys after listening to How Are the Dad's Dad on and off since my daughter was born in 2022. How Are the Dad's Dad was suggested to me by my neighbour who's become a really good mate over the years and has 2 children with his lovely wife who are very similar in age to our kids. We now have 2, a boy 11 months and a girl who's 2. Shout out to Hamish as well for How Are the Dad's Dad. I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts like Joe Rogan Experience, Lex Friedman and Jocko. They're great and for the most part super informative, but they're not putting me in the right frame of mind for parenting, and I have a tendency to take what I hear and run it into my life at the extreme. 1 pod with Jocko and I'm gearing up to start training to be a Navy SEAL, and 3 hours with Joe and I'm either looking for UFOs in the sky or researching some wild new theory that I've never heard about but totally bought into.
Yeah, feeling a bit seen myself, I guess. A bit of me.
Still waiting for the reply to be on the Joe Rogan Experience.
We're still
but
waiting.
Let's just say I'd fit the format with 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Loves the chat.
Loves the chat.
To say I've learned an important lesson in balance in recent times would be an understatement. I'm also a serial oversharer, so please forgive me for the details, but here goes. That's how I feel seen there. I run a small electrical contracting business. It's tough and it's busy, but it grants me wonderful opportunities both personally and professionally. Freedom of hours for the most part, a decent income that supports both me and my wife while she's at home with the kids, and fulfilling work that I do genuinely enjoy. Around Christmas 2023, I broke. In hindsight, I'd been building like a storm for a very long time, but I missed the warning signs and ended up sitting on my front driveway rocking back and forth after having very angry outbursts in the house and putting my fist through a wall. I've never and would never raise my hands to my children or my wife, or to anyone in fact, but it terrified me that I was capable of such a violent and aggressive act that was triggered by my kids screaming and not settling. Again, hindsight tells me they were merely the straw that broke the camel's back that night. It could never be their fault. They are such beautiful, innocent little people, and it breaks my heart that I could ever see them as anything but. On Christmas night, we had a tornado tear through our community, causing unprecedented damage and destruction to people's homes and lives. Our family home was relatively unscathed, so I set about doing what I could for friends, family and clients amidst the chaos. I've lived in this area my whole life and never seen anything like it before. What I didn't do was look out for my own mental health or the well-being of my own family. I put my job and everyone right in front of it and just battled on. The result was what I would refer to as an angry, nervous breakdown. My wife took me and the kids to her parents' place for a few days to escape the environment, a move that I'll always be grateful for, but at the time hated. There was no power in our area for 11 days. Even something as simple as no electricity and the constant drone of a generator humming in the yard to keep the house fans going was extremely triggering. I was on the drive home from my home to my wife's parents' place when I admitted that I needed help. I looked for it a little, but man, was the first step hard. I called the Beyond Blue phone number and spoke to a lady on the phone. I admitted that I considered suicide and that I had in some small way been self-harming and that I was afraid of what I may do next. They directed me to make an appointment with my GP to discuss a mental health care plan. I made that call expecting some sort of miracle cure on the phone and my troubles would be over. Totally not the case, obviously. I made an appointment with my GP, who was absolutely amazing. She put me in touch with a psychologist who was highly recommended in the area. She had a long wait time, 8 weeks approximately, but I decided to wait until I could see her and ride the time between out and do my best to keep my shit together. Several weeks later, I let the pressure get the better of me again, and I heard my mobile phone at the house. I was sick of the phone calls, the constant chipping away at my personal life, and the business taking up more and more of my time. I just wanted that device away from me. I hated it. The result was somehow still intact iPhone, but a smashed window at the front of my house. Now it was a plasterer and glazier to call for my behaviour. I spoke to a friend and told him what was going on. He told me in no uncertain terms, "You're fucked, you need help. Don't wait any longer. Call this other phone number that I've been given and make an appointment. If you don't, I will for you and drag you there myself." My mate's pretty gruff and probably wasn't kidding, but that call probably saved my life. I was at the point where contemplating suicide was frequent, and a feeling of being crushed in my chest was what I experienced whenever I wasn't coping with the kids. I finally got in to see the psych that my mate had recommended. It was around that time that I think I stumbled upon PCP. The last 6 months have been a roller coaster and an emotional awakening and a really hard journey of personal growth with plenty of steps back while I'm trying to move forward. The therapy sessions with my psych have helped immensely. I've since learned that I have quite obviously an anger management issue. I've been self-depreciating, self-harming and self-sabotaging a lot. My parents divorced when I was 7. My mother was an emotionally abusive person and my father was and still is to a point emotionally unavailable. I had a lot of bullshit to process and make sense of with therapy sessions and have since realised some very important details about my own upbringing and how it has affected me as a parent and a person in general. I no longer blame my mother for my behaviour as I once did and have been able to recognise that despite a lot of her actions, she was herself going through a mental health struggle for what must have been decades. I could tell you her history too, but we may never get to that giant thank you at the end of this email if I did. I'm still working on processing my relationship with my dad. I could go on for hours, days, weeks and garble my thoughts into a novel for you to read. There is so much to this story, but I don't think I could ever get it all out coherently, so let me get this bit out so you guys can continue with the amazing work that you do. Here's some key pointers from me to you, feedback for how you've helped me and the things I am grateful for in my life. My wife and I are communicating on an emotional level that I've never experienced before in my life. Your podcast has taken away that feeling of total isolation I felt as a father and gave me a beacon of hope in what was a very dark time in my life. I have so much more of a connected and meaningful relationship with both of my kids. My wife listens to you both, and we often talk about our own practices and how we can improve supporting our 2 beautiful kids. Your podcast has helped me in more ways than I can describe with my parenting, but also my mental health. I often refer other people to your show, whether they're new parents, old parents, about to be parents, or not even parents at all, for the advice and great chats your show has on offer. I've listened to every episode as of today and will be going back for round 2 starting tomorrow. Now that I'm up to speed with the show and your release schedule, I might one day have a question for you, but for the most part, I have everything answered or asked before I've even had a chance to think of it. For this, I thank you both. You saved my life, my marriage, helped me change the trajectory of my kids for the better. It's a very long road ahead. My mental health journey is far from over, but I can tell you that what you're both doing is making a huge difference in the world. And we cannot thank you enough for the work that you do. Absolutely the kindest and most heartfelt thanks. A fan, a listener, and a huge and new advocate for co-regulation and its wonderful beauty. Whew. Sorry.
Tough read.
Jesus. Yeah.
Amazing.
So it's amazing, and this is a journey that we're not doing perfectly, but there's you, me, and a whole bunch of people that are helping us, trying to just all learn together how we can better support our kids and look after ourselves.
Yeah, I know we got a good email recently. You sent to me, and I was like, I'll give you 100 more episodes. Give me that one. I'll give you another 250. So I think I'm on for about 348 more since we last said that.
Wonder what age that puts our kids at.
Oh my God. They'll be like, stop podcasting, you've got grandchildren. We're like, I got a debt to pay.
Mate, if I'm sitting with you like this as a grandparent, I've succeeded in my life.
Imagine that, 430 eps we'd be up to.
It's amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, awesome. I love the reflection ebbs. It's just the notes from people that make it better. I love the kick off with you. That's our kind of nice one to set up, and we get to watch a movie and have a bit of fun and then talk about it. But it's just like it's just taken on its own sort of path at the moment with people writing in notes, and we love it. So
we probably should. We could keep doing. There's so much, but I think we've got to just yes. Maybe we should do another attachment podcast for how much more we could cover. But yeah, massive shout out to everyone for being vulnerable, sharing their advice, their feedback to try and make it stronger.
Yeah, and particularly that last person that chose to put it all down on paper, and that would have been a huge effort and. Just amazing from where that person told us where they started to like all their self-awareness now and just getting so much clarity. It's amazing. That's episode 88, Billy. And that takes us, what have we got, 12 more eps, and we're trying to hit 100 by the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah, we'll hit 100 and over 1 million downloads. So you're all amazing, everyone listening. And and you heard it here, Nick's up for another few hundred.
Come on the hook for a few hundred more if they want it. All right, Billy, thanks heaps, guys. Enjoy the episode. We'll be back with a fresh new topic. I know the movie at this stage, and I'm excited about it, but I don't even know what the topic is. But we'll be back for episode 89 in a couple of weeks. Enjoy.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.